Or when you work in the topic of the climate crisis, every day you read news, sometimes I feel paralyzed and I feel like doomsday
Yeah.
scenario is here and we're all going to be screwed. And it's why are we even trying to change anything? Like that is a common narrative or emotion I sometimes have.
Yeah.
But then I have these amazing conversations with people that are startup founders, with people like you know, that work for NGOs that are shifting really the industry and that are moving a needle. And that's what gets me excited and seeing, okay, there is still a window of opportunity.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to ProVeg Talks. I'm excited to be your host on this journey through the plant-based nutrition, food innovation, and all exciting things happening in the food system. My name is Valentina Gallani. I'm a nutritionist and food technologist, and I work at ProVeg International as a health and nutrition manager. If you're new here, in each episode of the podcast, we will cover different topics with guests from different backgrounds to better understand the relationship between nutrition, health, and sustainability with a plant-based perspective. So whether you're a long-time plant-based eater or you're just curious, you are in the right place. If you haven't seen our previous episodes, I highly recommend checking them. And joining me today is a true polyhedral person, a scientist, an entrepreneur, a food enthusiast, and also a passionate speaker. A huge welcome to Lia Carlucci. Hi, Lia. How are you today?
Hi, Valentina. Thank you for having me. I'm doing good. The sun is shining in Berlin, so
Yes,
that's always a good indicator of my mood.
of course. Finally, spring times. Yeah, I'm very excited of the episode of today. But maybe you can tell us a bit more about you and your work, so we start getting to know each other.
Perfect. So I'm Lia, based in Berlin, and my topics are the future of food, climate action, and entrepreneurship. And I work on these different topics through different projects or companies. One is the Food Campus Berlin. I'm the managing director there. We're building a big innovation center for the future of food in Berlin. What does that mean? We see that there are already a lot of actors, startups, corporates, NGOs, science institutions, VCs, etc., working on the future of food. But we're still lacking enough collaboration to actually bring these solutions to scale. That's why we decided we're going to create a physical place, the physical food campus, where we bring these key stakeholders together and jointly work on these future topics. And in my picture, I always have that vision, you know, when people think of innovation of tech, they think of the Silicon Valley. When think of the world of finance, we think of Wall Street. But what is the one place you think of when you think of the future of food? Most people don't have an answer because
Yeah.
there are already, of course, innovation hubs. There are universities that are doing significant research in that field, but really bringing all key stakeholders together in one place that doesn't exist yet. And that's our big picture thinking with the food campus. I realize I have this background here, Women in Climate Tech. So that's another project I co-founded. We're an NGO on the mission of bringing more women into climate action. And why do we think that is necessary? Because if we look at the statistics, only 18% of founders in general are female founders, and only 2% of global VC funding actually goes to all female teams. So we see there is a big mismatch. And on the economic upside of it, studies show that founding teams or corporate leading teams are more successful economically if they have the more diverse they are. So 20% more revenue, 60% more profitability if you bring women and or other groups of diversity into your leadership teams. So economically, it totally makes sense. And looking at these numbers, my co-founder and I, we decided we need to do something about it. And that's why we started Women in Climate Tech. And
Nice.
and one last project I'm involved with, or I do, is my newsletter, Vitamin C, about food and climate insights. Because through my work with Women in Climate Tech, with Food Campus, I get to meet so many inspiring and fun people and learn a lot of interesting stuff. And more and more friends kept asking me, like, what is a good newsletter they should read? And there are some good ones out there, but in my perspective, they either too focused solely on the startup VC ecosystem, or they're just too long to read. And we live in a world of information overload and knowledge fatigue. And I like content that is very precise and very straight to the point. And that's why I started the Vitamin C newsletter, where I share my top findings in food and climate innovation. And
Nice. And the
that's awesome.
newsletter is like a weekly newsletter or?
So at the moment, it's bi-weekly.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just because, that's a very small portion of my time I can dedicate to it.
Of
I
course.
have enough content definitely I could write it daily, but yeah, just in respect of my own time and also the
Yeah.
quality I want to deliver.
Yeah, of course. I see that probably your schedule is pretty packed with everything that you do. And yeah, it's very inspiring and impressive what you've done so far and what you're doing. And if we look at the past, I remember when we meet the first time, I was particularly touched by your story, your background. And can you tell us what brought you into the nutrition and the food world?
So I originally, when I was a kid, I always thought I'm going to be a doctor. For me, that was a no-brainer. So what did I do after I graduated? From high school, I went to medical school. And one of my professors there said that over 80% of diseases are nutrition related. And for
Yeah.
me, that was like an eye opener. I was like, wow, 80% of diseases have something to do with the food we eat. Like, this is important. And this is where I realized for my own future, I wanted to go into nutrition medicine.
Mm-hmm.
But then I also looked at the curriculum of the medical school here in Germany. And honestly, within the 6 years of basic study, there was one simple lecture with like 12 classes on nutrition, where you learn what are macronutrients, what are micronutrients. It's like super basic knowledge.
Yeah.
Where I realized it's like, okay, if I want to go into nutrition medicine, maybe the medical route is not the right way. And that's why I decided to leave medical school and switched over to nutrition science and biochemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first really exposure then to the world of nutrition science. And from there, things just, moved on. It's with anything, the deeper you dive into a topic, the more we realize what you don't know and how many different experts there are on different fields, from the microbiome to diabetes to, plant-based
Yeah.
diets, products, etc. Like, there's such a big world within already the microcosm of nutrition.
Yeah, I perfectly agree. Also, when I started studying nutrition, I was like a bit, no, at the beginning, no, but after some years, I was a bit overwhelmed to all the things that you need to learn just to have a whole picture, and it's still not enough, most probably. So you mentioned also plant-based diets, and so you start learning about plant-based diets. I imagine learning more about pathology and chronic illness and so on. And so what did you discover afterwards, especially on the impact of our food system on climate, for example?
So the first couple of years of my studies of my career were focused on the human health and the impact that our food and our nutrition has on the human health. Remember, I mentioned the 80% of diseases are nutrition related.
Yeah.
So that was a big focus. But the more I dug into the research, I actually came to realize that our food is not only directly linked to our own human health, but also to the planetary health. And it's linked to that in a very almost disturbing way.
Yeah.
You guys know the figures. At ProVeg, you're pioneering with the research on that. Over 30% of greenhouse gas emissions are directly linked to our food. And the majority of that comes from the meat and the dairy industry. But if we look at the public conversations people are having, and that is happening in the media, if we think about climate action, it's about electricity and it's about mobility.
Yeah.
When humans love their car. So it's not like food, even though it is the single largest driver and therefore also driver for change we have, it's really not a priority yet,
Mm-hmm.
actually, on the political and the industry agenda. So that is just one figure. Then we have over 70% of biodiversity losses. So the plants and the animals that are dying out that are directly linked to our food system. Or the freshwater use. Over 50% of fresh water that is used is linked to our food system. And we know water is a scarce resource. It's like some
Yeah.
people talk about water as the new gold. And I could go on and go on, but this is where I realized, okay, food is crucial for our own health, but it's just as crucial for the planetary health. And since we as humans are an interlinked part of the planetary ecosystem, we can't live without the planet Earth. Yet, there's some people talk about we're all going to move to Mars at some point.
Yeah.
I still would prefer, to continue to live on this planet and to create a food system that actually supports the planet.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. Like, I completely agree with you. And when I also started studying food technology and learning a bit more about processing and our food system and so on, and I started knowing these numbers that you just cited, I was questioning myself, obviously, how can I do like just a little change to make like a bigger change in general. And I think like food is so underrated in this narrative, while instead it's super powerful. And so I think this was kind of a challenge for me, like also in my career and in my development of like moving towards plant-based diets and also advocating for a more sustainable food system, and in general how we at the moment how we eat and how we produce our food. So can I ask you, what was your first challenge like working in the field of nutrition?
I think, I mean, there's one like individual challenge. I can mention that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think on a system level, it is mostly that, if you talk about nutrition and food, um, unlike if you talk about nanotechnology, since
Yeah,
everyone eats every day, a lot of people are highly emotional when it comes to their food, and
true.
they don't talk about it rationally. And there's so much tradition, culture, personal preferences, personal stories, so much attached to the
Yeah.
topic of food and nutrition that is very challenging to have rationally based conversations. And even though we mentioned some of the statistics, we know of the facts, really translating that into consumer behavior,
Mm-hmm.
this is a super big and challenging
Yeah.
task. So that is on a system level.
Mm-hmm.
I think one challenge I personally faced was, when I went to medical school, I told people I'm going to become a medical doctor. Everyone was like, "Wow, okay, you're probably a smart person."
Yeah.
And when I told people I study nutrition science, they looked at me, it's like almost like with pity, saying like, "Oh, so you're going to be writing diet plans for the rest of your life? Poor you." And it's like I'm still the same person I was 2 years ago with the same intellect. Nothing has changed. Just
Yeah.
the topic I'm studying. And that really frustrated me, that even though nutrition is so freaking powerful as an industry, as a tool for health, for planetary health, etc., that the job and the profession of a nutrition scientist is still very undervalued in the
Yeah.
public perception. And that's why, back in the day, we started Nutrition Hub, which is now Germany's leading community for nutrition experts, because we really wanted to change that perception.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, first thing, I also got the same comment when I started saying that from food technologies, I was moving to more human nutrition and like diets and so on. And second of all, I want just to say that I'm also part of Nutrition Hub. So yes, so I'm very happy about the project, and I think it's amazing. And so you mentioned multiple times already that you are a founder of big projects. So what was like the transition, or how it happened, this transition from being a nutritionist into and food expert into more like becoming an entrepreneur and talking more with investors and the food industry?
So one of my first jobs was I was leading the product development for a food startup here in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from the topic world of food and nutrition. Entrepreneurship was completely new to me. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs, of business people. All my family, work in the healthcare in the system. They're employees. So for me, that was eye-opening, and I thought, like, this is brilliant. You can actually have crazy ideas and turn them into viable business models.
Yeah.
So this really infected me. I was like, okay, I'm not only passionate about the world of nutrition, but actually
Mm-hmm.
about building and creating a business. And that's why I started my first company in 2016. And we already met, during that
Yeah.
time. That was Nori, a D2C brand for plant-based supplements.
Yeah.
And we were very visionary with the products we had, and we were a bit early to the market. Worth working with these fancy ingredients that now are super in vogue, but back in 2016, it was a lot of consumer education. So things were a bit challenging. I mean, we grew the business, but essentially decided to close it down. But I took a lot of learnings, from that time, and realizing it's also not even that complicated. You just have to be brave and just do things, and you can start a company, you can raise capital, and then after that, I was involved in a few other food startups that started, and I was leading. Then moved over to the investment side. I was leading the food tech investments for Jägermeister. Probably is an alcoholic company.
Yeah.
But they also realized that consumer demands are shifting and people are becoming more health conscious, more environmentally conscious. And that's why with our investments, we looked into business opportunities within the world of future of food and drinks. And now with Food Campus, I bring all of that together, all the topics I'm excited about, entrepreneurship, the corporate world, community building, all of that like ties in together now.
That's great. So now it's like a mixture of everything that you learn in the past years. And I also had experience with startup, and I have to say, like, it's painful and it's tough, but you learn a lot of things. So yeah, I understand your point on startups and entrepreneurship in general. And so as of now, what's your favorite part of your job? If we can simplify job, meaning like everything that you're doing at the moment.
So my favorite part, I mean, you probably have the same experience when you talk about, or when you work in the topic of the climate crisis. Every day you read news, sometimes I feel paralyzed and I feel like doomsday scenario is here and we're all gonna be screwed. And it's, why are we even trying to change anything? Like that is a common narrative or emotion I sometimes have. But then I have these amazing conversations with people that are startup founders, with people like you, that work for NGOs that are shifting really the industry and that are moving a needle. And that's what gets me excited, and seeing, okay, there is still a window of opportunity. The scientists are saying the window is closing, but there's still an opportunity. And as long as there is an opportunity for change, I'm not going to stop fighting for it. And seeing that we're not alone in this, that there is a big community of entrepreneurs, of NGOs, of also public institutions that are pushing towards that shift, that is the best part, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And sometimes there are days that I'm full into eco anxiety and so on, and then I realize I have my colleagues, like the mission of our NGO, but also seeing like you and your job and tons of other people, like very experienced one. And so I'm like, okay, I'm doing a great thing now, and yeah, I see like I still feel hopeful, as you said. And so if we want to wrap all together, climate, sustainability, and nutrition, what do you think are the main trends that we are seeing already now and that it will see in the future, in the next years?
So one big topic, it's nothing new, but there's still so much room for improvement and for change, is the whole alternative protein industry. And you guys at ProVeg are very into that topic.
Yeah.
And Beyond Meat, was the first Beyond Meat burger was released in 2009. So that's 16 years ago. And if we look at how the products and the category has already evolved in these last 16 years, like, it gets me really excited of seeing, okay, where are we going to move not from now within the next 15, within the next 20 years?
Yeah.
And within alternative proteins, what we're going to see a lot more is anything precision fermentation based, because with fermentation nowadays, you can create almost any flavor molecule that exists in the world. So you can go into cheese alternatives to palm oil, to animal fats, to chocolate, and like the list goes on and on and on. And just seeing that really gets me excited. And then there's some crazy startups, crazy in a positive way, that are using, or that they're binding CO2 from the atmosphere and are turning them into valuable food products. And there's Archeon Biotech, for example, from Austria, or there's Solar Foods from Finland, that created a protein literally with the CO2 out of the air. And they recently went just so seeing that they're going public with a very competitive market valuation really shows that this is not only a philanthropic moral category to work on, but that is actually a big business opportunity within that. And I strongly believe the only way we're really going to shift the food system if we make it financially more attractive to be working on those alternative spaces. So that's alternative proteins. Another big thing we're going to see a lot more on is circular business models. So that because food waste is a huge topic. Over 30% of food actually gets wasted, and a large chunk of that happens at the consumer level. So any business models that is tackling the way of the problem of food waste is very promising. And then there's companies that are going into upcycling, or even like turning side streams, what used to be food waste, now actually into valuable food ingredients. There's a startup, for example, from Switzerland. They're called Renut. And they developed a technology that you can not only use the nut, but actually the shell as well. And that create, almond milk or hazelnut butter, or whatever you want to create, that you would usually create out of a nut, now also including the shell. And that is just, that's economically, it totally makes sense. You can lower your costs by 30%. And yes, you have the sustainability aspect as well. So I think that is where we're going to see a lot more innovation, or I hope, I hope that we see more innovation in that space as well. And what else? There's definitely, soil health is a huge topic with our current industrial farming, the third largest driver for greenhouse gas or food-related gas emissions. There are some studies, they're highly negotiable. They say that over 40% of the agricultural land we have here now, if we continue with business as usual, is not going to be usable. I don't know if it actually will be 40%, but it doesn't matter if that number is scientific, if that's validated or not. It's definitely, we know that if we continue with the industrial farming as we do today, we're going to face tremendous problems. The soil just is not fertile enough anymore to actually grow the food that we need. And so any business that is going into regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, I believe is highly crucial in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. And in fact, also this point sometimes it's not something that we talk about too much, but I think it's something that we start need to stress out about the soil health, and that's sometimes in the future maybe we won't have so much space to keep cultivating and so on. So it's definitely important as well. And I was also looking obviously at Food Campus website, and together with this holistic view of nutrition, climate, and sustainability, you also mentioned personalized nutrition, and I found it super interesting. Can you tell a bit more about this topic?
Our nutrition, as individuals, is as unique as our fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
That means my metabolism is completely unique. Your metabolism is completely unique. And what works for me doesn't automatically have to work for you. And
Yeah.
the general nutrition guidelines, as we know them, they were developed after the World Wars because people were completely malnourished and undernourished. And the government just realized, okay, we need to set some basic standards of these are the minimum micro and macronutrients that people need. But we have moved, or the research has developed since the 50s, and we're realizing now, remember the statistic I said before, over 80% of diseases are nutrition related. So there's a tremendous preventive power if we can actually manage to personalize, to individualize the nutrition recommendations and not only always go with the basic standards. And personalized nutrition, you can map out into different layers. It starts with very basic, my personal preferences. What do I like? Do I like the taste of cacao? Do I even like meat, etc.? Whatever it is, then it goes into the anthropometric data, your BMI, your height, your weight, your clinical parameters, your blood pressure, intolerances, etc. And then you go really deeper within the cell. You have the epigenetics, the genetics, and then even into the microbiome. So the entirety of our microorganisms that live in our gut. And there we are still at the very basic of the knowledge of what we know about the microbiome. And I believe that this is where, from a research perspective, we're going to see more and more publications coming out in the near future, actually on the topic of the microbiome. But if we consider all of these different layers of personalized nutrition, we really realize that each one of us has your own unique nutrition profile, and therefore should have their own nutrition recommendations. And as I said, there's tremendous potential in terms of prevention with the right nutrition. And that's why we decided at Food Campus because of that preventive power for public health, that we see this as a key future topic when we talk about food and nutrition.
Yeah, and exactly, this is very fascinating. As you mentioned before, like people think about nutrition as just what do you eat every day. Instead, it's like, as you just said, 7 different points of thousands of different factors that work together and differentiate one to another. So it's very fascinating. And looking forward at the future and the new technology, for example, how do you see the AI helping, for example, in the research on personalized nutrition?
When we talk about personalized nutrition, I mentioned all the different data points going into that we're usually talking about large sets of data, and anything that is large quantities of data just calls for machine learning and for AI. Yeah. And then AI is going to make it possible that, what used to be a very lifestyle unique topic that only the richest part of a society could afford, that in the future we're going to see personalized nutrition applications also being a lot more mainstream available. We're not there yet, but this is where I see tremendous potential. And as I said, AI can combine all these different data sets and analyze them. They can identify, with AI models, you can identify hidden patterns, how certain foods will react in the blood sugar of people, or you could actually predict responses to certain foods, to supplements before you even eat them. And now with the quantify self movement, where everyone wears a wearable that just constantly tracks you, we can potentially, with all that data, also give live recommendations and also track the process against health goals. And we learn well a lot more about ourselves when we actually manage to quantify things and to see it in the data points.
Yeah, and this is also like very fascinating. Imagine, for example, different data from people living in Asia or us in Europe, and we will learn that at the end we are kind of different, and not that one diet can fit all, which I think is a very important point. And I really believe in this holistic approach to nutrition, health, and planet, and I see you have the same mind of me, and so we are very well connected to the planet in which we live, to the animals, and to our health. And I think, like, with this podcast from ProVeg, we want to see to show that even a small change can have a huge impact on the planet, for example, and on the sustainability of our food system. So Lia, thank you so much. I think we talk about very interesting stuff, a lot of food for thought. I really hope you enjoyed being here with us. And as every episode, I wanted to ask you, what's your favorite plant-based meal?
So you're Italian, so you can very probably relate to me. My name sounds Italian, but it's only because I'm married an Italian. But I live with an Italian family, so we have pasta almost every day. And so I came to really discover my love for pasta, and everything, any pasta dish that exists, you can turn into a plant-based alternative. So it could be the spaghetti bolognese or the orecchiette, like whatever it is, lasagna, etc. So I really sometimes, it's not the healthiest food, because it's also, if it's white pasta with some creamy sauces, etc. But it's definitely very indulgent. And I mean, you asked for my favorite food, not the healthiest food.
Exactly the point. And as an Italian, and to all our Italian listener, we have a lot of plant-based meal already, plant-based, and this is great. This is really great.
I mean, the Mediterranean diet, the traditional Mediterranean diet has its reason why it's qualified as one of the healthiest diets in the world.
Exactly. So Lia, thank you so much again. Maybe you can share where our listener can find you on the internet.
Yeah, definitely on LinkedIn. My name, Lia Carlucci, and then Food Campus website, Women in Climate Tech, or subscribe to the newsletter, Vitamin C. And I think that's the basic basic way. And just if you have any questions, anyone, or project ideas, etc., anyone is always free to reach out. I read all my emails, all my messages, and I will definitely reply.
Thanks. Yeah, in your 20 hours day of working. Thank you so much, Lia, again. I really enjoyed this episode, and to all our listeners, especially the nutritionist and the food expert, I really recommend checking the Nutrition Hub, because I think it's a great way to get involved in the community of nutritionists. And again, thanks for tuning in our new episode of ProVeg Talks. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and leave us a review. Or if you have any question, you can write to us. We've got more amazing guests as well for the next episodes. So until then, stay curious, stay kind, and stay plant powered. Thank you, Lia. Bye.
Thank you, Valentina.